Hello, friends. Today, I came with a very different person, a leader whose people's lives are tied to a hair. If you want to know the details of the leader of North Korea and the executions he issues, stay with me until the end of the video. The actions and decisions of this person are so unbelievable that when we talk about it, it is possible to imagine that we are talking about the royal decisions of hundreds of years ago, but in the 21st century, this person commits these actions. This person is the strangest, the most autocratic. He is the most mysterious political figure that the world has seen throughout history, a character tied with power and cruel brutality that has always challenged the world without restraint. The easiest thing for this person is to issue the death command. It is not the death order of guilty people, but people with very minor and trivial mistakes. In this video, we are going to talk about the strangest death order by the leader of North Korea, Kim Jong-un. Before reviewing the death orders by Kim Jong-un, we must point out that this person's bloodlust is not limited to his reign. In fact, it was not Kim Jong-un who came to power after his father and took over the leadership of North Korea. Why? That he was not the eldest son of the family, and according to the law, the older brother had to follow his father and was placed in the seat of power. But in a very suspicious way, the older brother was assassinated by nerve gas and became the basis for Kim Jong-un's rise to power. It is definitely clear to everyone behind the curtain of this assassination, and there is no need to say who the finger of accusation is pointed towards. Execution of Defense Minister Hyun Yong Chol, North Korean Defense Minister, closed his eyes for only a few seconds during one of the meetings where the leader of North Korea was talking about the country. Kim assumed that his minister had fallen asleep during his speech, and this led to his anger. He ordered the defense minister to be thrown to the ground in the center of the city in front of hundreds of thousands of officials and shot with a gun at a distance of 1 meter. After these shootings, the only pieces left of the body of the Minister of Defense were the small pieces that were scattered all over the square. After this brutal execution, Kim Jong ordered to spread the news and the picture of this execution in all media of the country, so that everyone can learn a lesson and learn about the vengeful nature of the North Korean leader. You may say to yourself that the defense minister should not have closed his eyes during the North Korean leader's speech session, but you should know that Kim has even ordered the execution of his relatives for very small actions. At the end of one such meeting, Kim ordered the execution of his uncle only because he did not cheer with all his heart. It is strange that Kim has so far issued many execution orders for the same accusation. Cheering Kim has one of the strictest rules in North Korea, and it's interesting to know that one of the actions that can get you a death sentence in North Korea is failing to cheer for the North Korean leader. In fact, encouraging the leader in this country has its strict and specific rules. Cheerleaders must cheer with all their heart and strength, and they have no right to stop cheering until their palms are red and swollen. Otherwise, they will definitely be executed. Husband of the aunt. Kim's uncle and brother weren't the only family members he ordered executed. He ordered the execution of his aunt's husband only because he suspected that he might be planning a coup against him by means of the army. This is despite the fact that he did not have any valid proof of the authenticity of his suspicions about his aunt's husband, and he ordered his death only after the first suspicion he had on him, and he did not even order the slightest inspection or investigation or even an interrogation. But more strange than this decision was the execution method he had chosen for him, a method that may have been considered obsolete in the Middle Ages. Kim threw her aunt's husband naked in a cage with 120 hungry hounds. dogs that hadn't eaten anything for 5 days, so it's obvious what happened to her aunt's husband. But still, that wasn't the end of Kim's madness. He had ordered the army chiefs to stand and watch the execution process, which took about an hour, according to the usual routine of his executions, along with Kim's aunt. During this execution, it was natural that Kim's aunt would be unhappy, watching the scene of her husband's execution, and this discomfort was the reason for her execution. Kim considered her aunt's displeasure to be a betrayal of the government and ordered her to be poisoned. The manner of execution of Kim's aunt was better than the previous executions. But if you think that the reason for her execution was very low, you should know that after the execution of the Minister of Defense, he decided to shoot the close friend of this person, who is the Minister of Public Security, in the center of the city. He wanted to execute him for the crime of having a close and deep relationship with the Minister of Defense. But the execution method he chose for this person was an improvement in the level of unbridled violence of this autocrat. He decided to execute this execution by himself, and he did it with a flamethrower. If you thought that by following the strange rules in North Korea, you are safe from the wrath of the leader of this country, I must say that you are very wrong. Approaching this person in any way always carries the risk of death and execution. Kim's ex-girlfriend realized this better than anyone. Kim's ex-girlfriend, who was also a famous singer, continued her career after breaking up with Kim, but he was only able to produce one more music video because after publishing this song by the North Korean leader, he was accused of producing an obscene film, and his execution was ordered. But this was not the end of Kim's retaliatory executions. 15 road construction and forestry workers were sentenced to death due to dissatisfaction with the progress of the project, or even after the completion of the airport construction project in this country. He executed the supervising engineer of this project because he did not like the design of the airport. But if you imagine that execution in North Korea is the worst type of punishment, I must tell you that you are very wrong, because there are sentences in North Korea in front of which the death sentence of a person in a dog cage is considered as a magnanimous favor. Imprisonment in forced labor camps is one of the most unbelievable sentences that can be issued to a human being. Why death is a much easier option than imprisonment in these prisons. And the sad point of this story is that these prisons are the place of detention of people who try to escape from this cruel dictatorship, and the work does not end only with the imprisonment of these people. Rather, such criminals, not only themselves, but even all their family members, even their grandparents, are locked up and transferred to these prisons. A very far from honor and humanity punishment to deal with the escape of people from this unbelievable hell is the 22 prison camp in North Korea. According to published reports, it was closed in the year 2012. Or it can be said that this camp seems to be an incredible slaughterhouse. And it can be said that this is the least protected part of North Korea, and it is surrounded by mountains with a height of 400 to 700 meters. The description that some prison guards had of this prison was that walking in the soulless corridors and tunnels of this prison is like participating in a festival where the mannequins are skeleton-like prisoners and dwarfs who walk together in a paralyzed way. According to the former guards there, almost 30% of the prisoners of the 22 camp have deformities in their bodies that cannot be ignored. For example, eyes protruding from their sockets, or even cut noses, and even multiple bruises and lacerations on their faces and bodies. Unfortunately, most of them originate from the tortures inflicted on them just for the fun and laughter of the guards. And the unbelievable thing is that about 2,000 of these prisoners walk in these corridors despite having their limbs amputated, and the effects of torture on their bodies are quite obvious. Prisoners in this prison have to work from 5 in the morning to 8 in the evening and can only eat 2 meals of 180 grams cooked from corn. The food situation in this prison is so disordered that the prisoners eat rats, snakes, and frogs. Even when these animals become scarce, prisoners resort to eating insects that accumulate in toilets. These chaotic and unbelievable conditions had led to the death of 1,500 to 2,000 people in these prisons during the year. And the most unbelievable thing about prisons is that most of the prisoners were children under 10 years old. And you will be surprised if you know that some of the prisoners in this prison are even babies. Children and babies who are imprisoned in these prisons, not because of their crimes, but only because one of their relatives tried to escape from North Korea. But the conditions are getting worse by the order of Kim Jong-un. The only day off for the prisoners of this camp, it is New Year's Day, and they have to work hard all other days of the year. My dear friends, what is your opinion about North Korea and this model of living where there is no humanity? Write in the comments, I will definitely read it. Well, let's continue the video. The harsh conditions of this prison without safety and equipment have led to many accidents and the death of a large number of prisoners. But the worst thing is when there is a fire in this camp. During a fire, the doors of the cells are locked by the prison guards and they are not allowed to leave. It is not given to any prisoner. They should all burn alive in the fire. After the fire is over, the burnt bodies are transported by truck to large furnaces to be completely turned into ashes. In Camp 22, all the guards are taught that the prisoners of this place have no smell of humanity and are even less than animals, and they encourage them to treat prisoners like animals. Unbelievable acts are done by the prison guards in this prison. Violent and evil acts such as rape of children and women, beating, or even arbitrary amputation of prisoners' limbs. And even one of the guards of this prison admitted that he killed 31 members of 5 families because of the unsuccessful escape of one of their friends have killed. However, despite the harsh working conditions in Camp 22, or even the deterioration of the food situation in this prison, the prisoners have no right to protest, and if they make such mistakes, strange and severe tortures await them. Tortures that are divided into 5 groups and assigned to the prisoners for the rise of the warden of the prison. These 5 tortures are as follows. The first is torture in water. In this method, the protesting prisoners are forced to stand on their toes in a tank full of cold water that is up to their noses for 24 hours without complaining. The second is hanging. The protesters are hung naked and the guards beat the prisoners. The third torture is on the knees. This method is undoubtedly one of the worst tortures that is done on the prisoners. In this method, they tie the prisoner's knees with a tight elastic band and force him to sit on the ground with both knees. And after some time, despite the blockage of the blood vessels in his legs, people suffer permanent paralysis. The fourth is the pigeon torture, which in this method hangs the prisoners by their hands, which are tied behind their backs. And the last torture method, which is actually the fun of the prison guards. In this method, the guards use the prisoners as training opponents, with the difference that the prisoners even have the right to defend themselves. They don't have any self-care. But the difficulty of the situation does not end with these tortures. If any of the prisoners are used in projects related to the army or the government, they will all be killed after the project is finished. But the word murder in this prison is a joke. a prison where prisoners go under the knife of surgical students like laboratory rats, so that these surgeons can master their science by working on the bodies of these prisoners. But according to North Korea's claim, this prison was closed in the year 2012, but the international community and human rights activists are still looking for information and events that happened in this prison. Thank you for being with us in this program. To see more videos, be sure to subscribe to our channel and introduce it to your friends. Until the next video, take care of yourself